This broadcast will start in 30 seconds. This broadcast will start in 15 seconds. This broadcast will start in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The Voice of Stockton. For more information on The Voice of Stockton, go to thevoiceofstockton.org.
This is Darius Oliver, and you're listening to 92.1 KXVS, The Voice of Stockton.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of KXVS, The Voice of Stockton, or its parents, affiliates, management, and staff.
What is up, Stockton, California, worldwide, the Central Valley? This is Chaz Day of Hella Deadass Entertainment with Rise and Shine 209, your favorite weekday morning show. Tune in Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. PST for entertainment that is right up your alley, featuring unsigned artists and small businesses from across the globe that share the grassroots local determination to grow. Do you see what I've done with those rhymes back there? So when you see me on live, I want you to comment, like, and share. And just like that, we're live. Okay. Good afternoon. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. How about yourself?
Doing great as well. Thank you so much for taking your time and coming in to speak with me here today.
My pleasure. Coming in here, when I walked in, it was warm, and I have to keep reminding myself that we don't live in Southern California,
right.
And it's November 3rd,
right.
And we have 80-degree temperatures.
Right.
I'm just like, I can't get over how warm it is.
I know. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. You know what I mean? Like, I like that it's still warm because I'm not a fan of the cold, but then I'm like, well, it's almost winter time. I feel like I remember fall being a thing when I was younger. You know what I mean? And it seems like the older I get, the less fall we get.
Right.
But although at least I'd rather have it be too hot than too cold.
Oh,
so.
I'm right there with you. I am a California girl, and I love warm weather. I can always, find ways to cool off. But
Right.
if I get cold,
Right.
I'm miserable.
Mm-hmm.
I do not like to be cold.
Right.
So I don't have a reason not to get out of bed in the morning because
Right.
I'm like, hey, it's not like the floor's cold or my bathroom's cold or anything like that. So, I'm enjoying it. I was at a gala last night for Comerciantes Unidos. It was their gala and installation of new officers. And I had
Nice.
on this beautiful dress, and I went to grab a coat, and I went outside, and I was like, I don't need a coat. And even afterwards, I left at 10:30 at night, and I don't need a coat, and
Right.
it's November.
Right.
So I just, I'm loving this weather, but seeing the commercials for Christmas now,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, whoa.
It's a trip, yeah.
Yeah.
I visited Ohio for the first time this year, both in the winter and then in the summer. And it was snowing in the winter, and then the summer was just so hot and humid. I was like, oh, this is why we pay 8 times the rent in California.
Yeah.
We're paying for the weather.
I don't mind dry heat. The humidity, I don't
it's
do
horrible.
well with. And while my hair's not curly right now, us curly sisters,
Yeah.
we have, that humidity, and then it's
Yes.
like I'm a lion. Just,
Yes,
woof.
yes. I
know,
could attest to that for sure.
So I could not have this straight hair in humidity.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter how much product I put in it.
Right.
It's
just
not staying.
gonna. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't even bother to see if my hair would stand up for being straightened out there. So I understand you on that one. Okay. Well, so you are running for city council, right?
Yes. So I'm actually currently the city council member for District 5 that runs from Harding Way to Martin Luther King Boulevard.
Okay.
Then it goes to the west to Lewis Park and to Boggs Track and even West 8th Street to an area known as Moss Gardens. It's the north side of West 8th Street.
Right.
And then to the east, it goes out Main Street, actually from Fremont to, just north of Myrtle So Weber on the east side,
Gotcha.
then down to even Mariposa Road and Farmington Road.
Oh, okay.
And even down Park Lane where Maya Angelou Library is. So it's a really diverse population.
Does that include like Franklin area? Is
No,
that
Franklin's county. So
Okay.
once you cross 99, you're in the county.
Gotcha.
That's where they don't have sidewalks. Where they
Gotcha.
don't have
Yeah.
sidewalks, that's usually a clear sign that
That it's
we've
county.
now crossed over into county areas.
Okay, yeah. 'Cause I grew up over like on 8th and B Street area, and I think that place is weird because there's still some places that don't have sidewalk, but then I think B Street itself, they finally put sidewalk on.
Yeah, so there are little pockets. So where M&M Market is, that's county. Right
Okay,
on
that's-
8th Street.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so there's just these little teeny county pockets, and they don't want to annex to the city. And I can understand why, because your taxes go up a little
Right.
once you hit city. Your
Right.
phone bill goes up a little. Your cable bill goes up. I mean, there's other things that get triggered when you
Once
cross
you-
over into the city. And so actually at 8th and D Street, that is the wonderful lesson I do with my students on gerrymandering, where it goes down 4th or D Street and cuts in front of Ralph Lee White's house
Yeah.
and puts him in District 5. Because if you look at the map, it looks really strange to have all this District 6 and then all of a sudden this little pocket
Of
of
District
District 5. And so I teach AP Human Geography. So I have a map of the city in the classroom because kids are like, oh, where am I at? And they're always surprised. They're like, why is this a different color? This should be the same color as all the property around it.
Right, right.
But I go, that's a way that, unfortunately, people who don't vote, they lose their say because it's the same population of people that are making the rules for everybody because they
Right.
always show up to vote.
Right,
And they can make those changes.
right.
So I always try to encourage everybody, please get out and vote, even if it's only one item that you learn about that you
Right.
vote on, because I don't
Right.
want you flipping a coin. Heads is the
Exactly.
first and
Yeah.
tails is the second.
Yeah.
But it's just extremely important that people get out to vote because in the primary, we had about 17% of eligible voters show up to vote in my district. We had 3,700 people vote. That was it. In District 1, they had 8,000
Right.
people. So I'm
Right.
just like, I don't know how to,
Get across to people that
yeah, the importance and like, it.
And see, I can understand like feeling like a little apathetic in terms of like the presidential elections, but the local elections, those are the ones that, you know what I mean, that
really directly impact you.
exactly. So yes, I agree with you on that so much that even more, not more so than the presidential, but at least, yeah, you can see the direct effects of these. You a lot of times know the people, or at least see them around
Right.
the town, and you know what I mean. Like it's definitely more personal and more directly impactful to vote in these elections.
And think about when we met, at Fresh October, October Fresh.
Oktoberfest,
Fresh, downtown. Here you guys were doing a wonderful event during Stockton Arts Week. And we as the city partner that because that's a space that is a publicly owned
Right.
space.
Right.
But you have to do paperwork. You have to make sure you have all your ducks in a row, your I's dotted, your T's crossed.
Right.
So it's not like you can just go out and do an event, even though people do that.
Right.
But if you follow the rules, to go out and put on an event like that takes time and collaboration.
yes.
And it's important that we support events like that because they're quality of life events
Right.
that bring people out of their homes, that they can see and feel like their tax dollars at work.
Right. Right.
And get something enjoyable out of
Right,
it.
right.
And so, I loved being out there. That was another warm day.
I know. Luckily.
It was. But the negative part of that, I'm just going to say it, was the smell. If you remember that day,
yeah.
because of the water.
the algae. Yeah.
The algae bloom and the water. And, I kind of feel like we're responsible for taking care of that. Now, while nobody complained about it, I mean, it really...
Yeah, it was there.
It was lingering all around. And
Right.
so, at the end of July, after, making repeated requests to get that cleaned up, I just went in the water myself and started to clean it up. And then 3 days later, a company was called out, and they did a much better job than I could by myself.
Right.
And it's funny because people always say, politician this, politician that, all they do is talk and they don't, it's really difficult sometimes though, because those of us that want to go out and be more active, we have to work as a team. And if the team members don't support that, then it ends up being one person. And so I challenge people all the time, and I'm, really at the point now where I want to challenge my council mates to say, listen, if homelessness is something that you're concerned about, then we need to work together to allocate funds or policy or support to really address that situation.
Right.
And so I find it interesting because I'm in the heat of re-election, and I always try to say, well, my record should stand for itself, speak for itself.
Right.
I haven't missed a single meeting except when I was with the Homeless Task Force in New York City, looking at their program, and we now have it here. It's called Ready to Work. In New York, it was called Ready, Willing, and Able, but it's where you hire homeless to help clean up. And you give them a place to live, and you provide them with meals, and you provide them with training and employment and all those things to help them become productive members.
Self-sustainable.
And because imagine if you had been homeless for an extended period of time. And when I say extended, I'm saying, let's say a year. It's really difficult to get back in the swing of things.
Right.
I mean, look at kids during summer vacation.
Right.
They're sleeping in, staying up all night.
Right.
They're not practicing their fractions, their multiplications, algebraic equations. They're not doing that.
Right.
So they've had the whole summer off, and then they come back to school like, oh, I can't get up in the morning. I mean, you have to assist people in preparing them to reintroduce themselves into society.
That's the point that a lot of people don't realize. And not only that, but a lot of times they're homeless because they have mental issues, or they have, other issues. So I like that, because it's not just, giving a handout to somebody. It's actually providing like life skills. Like you said, you're giving them a job, you're giving them basically something on their resume, because if they've been homeless for a year, they might not have had a job for 2.
Right. They might not have a social security card, ID. They obviously don't have an address.
Right.
So, but besides that, one of the groups that reached out to me was like the trucking industry. We have a lot of trucking jobs around here. And Gary Allegre, part of Allegre Trucking, and he has Tanker Wash. He's like, Christina, if you give me somebody who, they can't be on drugs,
right,
but I will work with them. I go, they can be making $50,000-$60,000 a year to start. We'll train them. We'll teach them how to drive the rigs. I mean, we'll do all this stuff, but they just have to stay clean.
Right.
And he has taken people off the street, and they are doing fabulously. They're thriving. Not everybody,
right?
Because sometimes that lure of that drug or whatever addiction that they're battling, or mental issues. If you're not taking your medication, or if you're hanging out with the same people you used with after you're clean,
right?
That is, it's proven. Studies show that, even if you drive down the street where you used to score your drugs, dopamine starts shooting off in your brain.
Right.
Wanting that high.
Right, because you've created pathways in your brain, neurological pathways.
And it's there. And it takes a lot. You can overcome it, but it's not easy. You can't just flip a switch and say, okay, I'm done.
Right.
And so, I've studied that at University of Utah. And so I know that we have all, levels of homeless in Stockton, but it's going to take a concerted effort. And at some point, we need to say, hey, we're going to try this, or we're going to try that, which is why Ready to Work, it's working with a small group of people. But if it's successful, then we can expand it, which I'm really looking forward to being able to do that. But there are people out there, there are families out there living on our streets.
Yeah.
Small children.
I've recently just seen the little encampment over there by the, I guess it's that way, by the Safeway on Country Club. If you take that little back thing, and there's a whole. I was like, whoa! I never realized there's a whole little city back there.
Right,
you know?
and you look at, that's what I'm saying. Weather-wise, you can live outdoors here.
Yeah.
I mean, we do have some cold temperatures,
but not like New York or.
We're not like Montana,
right.
North Dakota.
Yeah.
Where. Bismarck, where you're having snow and cold for months. I mean, it makes it very difficult to be outdoors. Even in New York, they used to have a lot of homeless on the subway because it's warm down there.
Right,
and then in the summertime, they have air conditioning, so you could be down there. But they have a department of homeless services that you can't be out. They provide everybody with a bed. You got to go to one of their facilities. If the police see you on the street, they come, they pick you up, and they take you to one of them to stay at. But
when I was out there, I saw some kind of like just advertisement for that because it was the middle of winter when I went out there, and they were just saying like, it's like you're saying, it's different for somewhere where it snows. Like that person out on the street can actually die overnight. You know, so But the funding structure in New York is very different. It's like San Francisco because New York is a county and a city. San Francisco is a county and a city. Gotcha.
Sacramento is a county, Sac County and a city. Stockton is a city.
And then
in San Joaquin County.
Right.
So it's a big issue. And I went to the homeless forum just on Thursday night, so 2 nights ago, and it was kind of interesting because one of the comments was that Supervisor Miller made. She said, it's not happening fast enough, so you must not be doing anything. She said that was kind of the response that people get.
Right.
And I mean, that's the stuff that I get all the time. What are you guys doing? What are you guys doing?
Right.
And we've done a few things at the city level. For example, we've established $50,000 in a fund for people to create more housing. So if I had a rental property, I could, and I was willing to make it Section 8 or something that
GA or
to increase the housing stock. And if something were to happen, I'm protected by this program because they would, I could apply for the money to fix, let's say, something if somebody destroyed
vandalized it
and they also provide money to go through, let's say, like the eviction process or something like that. Because
it's kind of like a safety net for the people willing to take the risk on.
But nobody has taken advantage of it. And I sit here and I think, gosh, I wish if I would have won the mega lottery.
Right.
I was thinking about all the things I would do in Stockton with that money. And I'm like, I would be snatching up, properties and allowing people to move into them. People who, because I've had homeless students who their parents both had jobs.
Right.
But they had an eviction on their record. They couldn't get into housing. So they were, they were living in their cars.
Right. Yeah.
And that's really tough. And so how do you expect, if that's on your record for 7 years or 10 years, however the length is, how do you expect to find housing?
And some, I've seen some where it says if you've had an eviction ever. So I don't know if, like, how, you know what I mean? If if it's supposed to fall off or if it stays on and then they don't really trip after so many years. But some people I know are like, if you've ever had
And how do you get out of that then?
Yeah.
How do you get out of that when you've got a minimum wage job and you don't, I won't use it derogatory, you don't have a pot to pee in, so to speak, which is a whole nother issue, not having somewhere to go to the bathroom.
Right.
But I mean, what do you do? You're working your 40 hours and doing what you can and or working 2 jobs and you still can barely make ends meet.
Right.
So it is a real issue, and it's something that I've tried to tackle. Unfortunately, it's been mainly by myself. Not that council has made it a priority. I mean, it's number 2 on our list of priorities. So our first priority is focusing on crime reduction, including group gun violence, blight reduction, and outreach for hot zones and hot people. And then the second one is develop solutions that address homelessness. And so, for example, in our meeting this Tuesday, we're closing out our 4th quarter for 2017, 2018, our budget.
Right. Okay.
And to see that we have a very large amount of money that we did not spend to the tune of $53.1 million.
Oh, wow.
You know, it's a lot to handle when, you know, I'm looking at, you know, what needs to be done in the city.
And that's one of the main criticisms I've read about, like, a lot of the propositions that are proposed on the ballot, and a lot of the things is that a lot of these issues we've already allocated money to, and it's not been used. You know what I mean? So that, and what would you think would be like a first step in reconciling that, if you can even like?
Well, I sit on another, I sit on a board. I sit on the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District Board, and they do something called zero-based budgeting, where you start at zero and you say, these are the things we need to do in order to operate,
Right.
And how much that's going to cost. Well, we kind of look at our $217 million. We kind of do it the other way. And I'm told, well, municipal finance is different.
Right.
But at the end of the day, if we're budgeting money to do something, I think we need to do it.
Right.
It's kind of like the promise we make to the public that we're taking your tax dollars and we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Well, at the end of the year, if all we've done is X, you know, that's when the public loses faith.
Right.
That's when they become apathetic.
Right.
That's when they stop voting. They stop showing up to council meetings. They stop being involved, because it's like we said we were going to do something and we didn't. Can you imagine? I mean, like if I told my nephew I was taking him to Disneyland, oh, he would be like, Christina, when are we going? I've done this. I said, I'm going to take you on a train. And he said, today? No, not today. Tomorrow? No. And every time I saw him, when are we going on the train? When are we? I said,
Right.
I told you. Well, for Sky Zone, for his birthday.
Uh-huh.
On his birthday, I said, I'm not taking you on your birthday. I'm taking him when we're off of school.
Uh-huh.
So it was October. His birthday's October 4th.
Uh-huh.
So he had me pick him up from school, and he goes, are we going to Sky Zone now? And I said, CJ, no, we're going next week.
Right.
Oh, you said we were going for my birthday. I said, yes, we're going for your birthday, just not on your birthday.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's kind of an analogy where, you know, you tell people you're going to do this, and they kind of expect you to do that. And so I really think, you know, when we do these priorities, this goal setting, we need to be able to report out and show how we're doing that. And so it's not easy, and it's not going to happen overnight. But in order to keep the public informed of everything that we're doing in order to meet that obligation, I think it's very important, because that adds to the transparency and the ability of people to say, okay, our representatives are doing what we elected them to do.
Right. Well, that's, fingers crossed we can get.
Yeah. Well, and I think we'll get there. And, you know, the thing for me is, you know, I'm a school teacher. I'm a high school teacher. I've been doing it for 24 years. It's public school, so I teach everybody.
Right.
But I do think I have the best students in the world. Some of them were at the library today, and they were texting me from the library like, hey, we're at the library. We're working on our project. And I'm like, you know, that's great. How many kids text their teacher on a Saturday to let them know
Right.
that they're at their library working on their project? But, you know, it's been like the joy of my life to do that, to serve. And here I am, you know, I kind of kicked it up a notch. So
Right.
instead of just serving our youth, I'm serving everybody.
Right.
And this is the first election where we're going to have district-only voting.
Okay.
But the things that come before council affect everybody,
Right.
not just the people in my district. And I've had some people say, you know, like, well, what have you done in your district other than Fair Oaks Library, which I think is huge,
Yeah.
getting a library reopened that was set to be sold.
Right.
I think that's huge. But when I think, you know, well, what has been done, I remember, well, I'm embarrassed to say, I was sick, and I went to a meeting, and, you know, I kind of just got a little dizzy at the meeting and, you know, laid on the floor for a little bit. Anyway, but the reason I went to that meeting was because Victory Park was on that agenda for that meeting.
Okay.
Weber Point water feature was on the agenda for that meeting. The marina was on the agenda for that meeting. I show up at all those meetings and I fight to make sure that those resources come to my district. But then there's a scoreboard, which was recently on there, and people were like, hey, you got the biggest share. Your district's getting a $650,000 scoreboard. And I'm like, yeah.
We didn't need a scoreboard.
I'm like, where is that on our council priorities? I don't see it. And people say, but that's good. We need to have it. I go, the scoring part works. It's the video board that has 4 sections that are out. I said, does that video board make our players hit the ball better, catch the ball better, win more games?
Right.
I'm like, I think that could wait.
Right.
There are other things I don't think that can wait.
Right.
That
Or shouldn't.
Right. And so, I hope my district knows how hard I work for them every day, but I'm not going to ignore, other issues in this city because it impacts this district as well. All of our decisions, whether we're going to raise water rates. Okay. While I live in the Cal Water Service area, that affects people's ability to pay all their bills every month.
Right. Right.
And that could mean people losing their housing.
Right.
Or something like that. I mean, those are things, when we make those decisions, we have to be cognizant of that. And as a teacher, I think about my kids with every decision. What kind of city are they going to inherit from us?
Right.
What are the decisions? How are they going to impact them?
Right.
Are they going to come back to Stockton after going off to college or not? I mean, I looked at a video that I did last time I was running, and I was like, oh, I look so young. I was so naive. But really, I'm the same person. I mean, I looked at it, and I'm stone cold the exact same person. And the funny thing is, at the Comerciantes Unidos event last night, one of my former students from 18 years ago came up to me, Miss Fugazi. She now is a manager at F&M Bank.
Oh, okay.
But when she first came to me, she was, struggling a little. This was at Tokay High School, and but she was just such a happy kid. And I just gravitated towards her because her energy was just so phenomenal.
Right.
And last night, her and her husband were like, you're part of the reason I'm successful because you believed in me and you wanted to help me. And I went off to college and I graduated. And now here I am as a manager at F&M Bank. Right. And I just want to thank you. I'm like, wow. Wow. So I'm like, she's prospering. She is successful. She's doing this thing. And she came back to her community to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now she's a role model to others.
I've noticed recently, a lot more people are coming back, and there's a place, Superfish Pokey. The owner, I went to high school with him. He went to San Jose.
Wait, what's his name?
Drexley.
Yeah, you know, I have to get in touch with him. We have missed each other because he's really, talk about energy. Yes,
Drex is a super dynamic person, and honestly, he was pivotal to me and Cameron King and a lot of the artists that are Cameron's awesome. A lot of the artists that are involved in October Fresh and all these other little events got together because he came back and provided us a venue to do music and have open mics. And I've noticed there's quite a few people who have recently come back. So I feel like you're saying, it's going to be a slow process, but more and more people are starting to wake up to their city and how important it is, and the love of it. So
well, and I like being kind of that bridge because IMAX, but it's Ivan, and he was my student too,
right?
And he was one of the ones who I'm just like, ooh, you can do some really neat things. Will you be our mascot at Tokay? And he was like, well, excuse me. So I was like, no, I don't want to. I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
You can do backflips and climb up the wall, and you'll be so amazing instead of just going in your tiger suit.
Right.
And man, he just took off. And talk about taking off. Here he is, so successful. I mean, he's known nationwide.
Yeah.
But yet our own city, I want to work with him to put on an event in the spring.
Right.
I'm like, he's homegrown.
Yes.
His family is extremely invested in this community with
Right.
they owning businesses here.
Right.
And I'm like, and here he's bringing something positive, an outlet. And so one of my students this year, Jarian, he was like, and he told me he does dance and this kind of thing. And I'm like, oh, do you know IMAX? He's like, that's my dude. He's the one that taught me stuff. And I get to perform with him. I go, he used to be my student too. And he's like, no way.
Right on.
You know, and so I think that we need to take advantage of the things that are our assets that we know that we're really good at. And we need to showcase those. And we
Right.
need to say, look what Stockton has
Right.
here.
Right.
And I know some people, they kind of unfortunately have a perception or a preconceived a notion on what something is. But we had a breakdancing club at Tokay. There
Right.
was never any problems. There was never any drama. These are kids that were just passionate about their craft.
Right.
Whether, it be on the floor, or standing up doing their dance and
Right.
popping and all that kind of
Right.
stuff.
Right.
But nobody ever got hurt.
Right. Well, and that's especially with hip hop, Stockton has a very strong misconception, and that's what we were doing with October Fresh, is trying to show people like exactly it's an art form that a lot of people can express themselves through, and most of the time it's not negative. Anything can be portrayed negatively or
Sure.
used negatively, but in and of itself it's not a negative thing. So yeah, that's interesting because I would have never thought Tokay would have like a breakdancing club.
Really? Oh yeah, we did. Because I was in charge of cheerleaders, and we would have the gym. We'd have one of the rooms, and they were looking for an advisor. You have to have a teacher advisor, and they were like, Miss Fugazi, please, 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 please. And I'm like, okay, one day in the gym, I'll be with you guys for like an hour after school. Because you think about it, I spend more time with these kids sometimes than their own parents, because their parents are working all day, and I'm at school, 6 to 8 hours. And I want to encourage them and support them in whatever their passions are.
Right.
Because it's when they don't get support
That's when
that they take a
Lash out
turn
and-
sometimes. So I'm super excited that we have events such as yours. We need to have more of them. I think it brings a sense of community and legitimacy to what edifies people, what they have in their heart.
Exactly.
And you can't tell people what you have in your heart is, just because it might not be your passion doesn't mean it can't be somebody else's.
Right.
Like, I have horrible penmanship. I am not an artist by any means in terms of
Visual.
arts. But I'm very creative mentally.
Right.
I love to support people who are strong where I'm not so strong. Because then, in a way, by supporting them, then we all benefit from it.
Exactly.
It's not about me.
Exactly.
It's about what we collectively bring to the table.
Exactly.
And so thinking about public office, no matter what people are running for, it's about putting aside what your personal preconceived notions are, or your feelings about somebody or something. If it's a good idea, let's get behind and support that good idea.
Right.
And if it's not, then we need to look at something else.
Right.
And if we disagree, it's okay to disagree.
Yeah, that's one thing I've noticed more and more, or that's getting worse, is like Republican versus Democrat. Like, oh, if you're a Democrat, then you're retarded, or if you're a Republican, then you must be racist. And it's like people are entitled to have their own opinions, and let's work together on, like you're saying, like making our community better. It shouldn't matter what what your affiliation is or whatever. Like your end goal, regardless of what party you're in, your end goal should be to better your community.
Right. And it doesn't matter what your race is, your religion, your creed, your socioeconomic, your education level, whatever. I bet everybody can agree that they want a safe park.
Right.
I bet everybody can agree that they want their parents, as they get older, to have access to medical care. I bet everybody can agree that's a parent that they want their children to have, get a good education, quality education.
Right.
There are things that we can agree upon.
Right.
And that's what we need to focus on, those.
Right.
And the ones that we don't, I think that the cream rises to the top. And when we have discussion,
Right.
discourse,
Right.
sometimes could be debate, but that's when those good ideas rise to the top.
Right. Right.
And everybody has something to contribute to the discussion and the dialogue. It's when we shut those people down, again, then they become apathetic and they don't vote and they don't want to be part of the process.
Right.
And then we all lose because everybody has value.
Right.
And so that's kind of how I approach things, which I do something called a Council Members Digest, where I do a report. I started it in July or August, where before the council meeting, so I did it yesterday,
Right.
Friday, where I go run down the agenda. I let people know what's going to be on it. Maybe there's something on there that you have a personal affinity towards or opinion on. So then you'll come to our council meeting or send a message to your council representative letting them know how you feel about that.
Right.
I want it because not everybody can be at a 5:30 on a Tuesday night meeting. Maybe they're making dinner for their family or they're at work or whatever.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that there isn't an avenue for you to be part of the conversation through an email, through a call, through a text message, through a Facebook post. I mean, nowadays there's no excuse for the conversation not to be had.
Right. Right. I agree. And again, like you're saying, like getting people out of that apathetic mindset, I've seen you more than most any other of our local politicians. And it's funny because a couple of my friends were having a conversation the other day, and one of them was like, he was saying, because one of them was saying that you've done a bunch of stuff, and then the other one was like, well, but there is an election coming up. And the first one was like, I remember her doing this last year, the year before, like blah, blah, blah. So it's just funny, like, if you put it out there and you're actually, you know what I mean? If you practice what you preach, it's out there in the public. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, that's like, cleanups. I mean, I've done coastal cleanup for years. I've had my students doing community service for years with me. I don't do it just at election time.
Right.
And I always tell people, check my record.
Yeah.
I go, just go down my Facebook. I make things public. You
Right.
can scroll down 2017, 2016, 2015. Heck, go all the way down to 2008 when I first started my account.
Right.
Go check it. I said, you think you want to say one thing about me,
Right.
but unless you do your homework, don't talk about things that you don't actually know.
Right.
Because I get called out on that all the time. So, unfortunately, the other night, a young man was killed after the football game, the 49er Raider game here in Stockton. And he was close to a lot of the people I'm close to. And I don't normally do a post that's very specific. I just say there was a shooting. I don't name the person.
Right.
But this young man was loved by so many people. And I'm all of the people. I mean, anybody that gets
is
murdered
yeah.
has loved ones.
Right.
But this young man, born and raised here, graduated from Edison High School. And I just put it out there. I just said enough is enough. I don't want to do these posts. People want to say, hey, why are you blaming the business? Or, hey, why didn't you say something about my family member? And I said, I'm sorry. I feel for anybody who has ever lost anybody
Right.
to violence
Right.
in our city or anywhere for that matter. I said, but we at least need to start having the conversation. And if we need to help a business, to implement some measures in order to keep people safe, because a lot of people say, well, if it didn't happen in here and it happened out just outside this door,
Then it's not my responsibility.
But it is,
Yeah.
because you're part of the community.
Right.
And we actually have Stockton Municipal Code that states that your business is part of the community.
Right.
And
right.
you have to not be a nuisance, and I'm just like, we can do better.
Right.
And I'm extending a hand to you to say, if you need help, I will help you. I will set up a meeting with the police department. I will come to you. I will, whatever I can do.
Right.
I don't want to shut down a business, but I also don't want to have another senseless murder, because somebody got into it at the establishment and then walked out, took it outside.
Right.
I mean, people used to fight with their fists. When I grew up,
Right.
nobody had a gun. Now I feel like everybody, I mean, they're so easy to get. People are packing all the time.
Right.
And I've had students that I was very concerned about. I mean, at Venture Academy, we had to, you know, there were individuals making threats. And fortunately, you know, nobody ever got hurt or anything like that. But it's a different time.
Right.
And instead of people being able to deal with disagreements in a rational manner, or just say, screw you, or sticks and stones will break my bones, or, you know, I'm
Right.
rubber, you're glue, everything bounces on me, sticks on you. I mean, you know, all those things I was taught growing up.
Right, right.
Now it's just escalated. And unfortunately, the repercussions for those actions are permanent.
Exactly.
You can't take them back,
Yeah.
ever. And, you know, this young man, like I said, he's really loved. And I'm just like, you know, going back here to our council priorities. Focus on crime reduction, including group gang violence, you know, hot zones, hot people. I don't know if this was a hot person.
Right.
What I consider hot, you know, somebody who's routinely doing something.
Affiliated
Or if they just, yeah. So there's a lot of work to be done in this city.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of
yeah.
work. And
But
I'm
it's got a lot of potential as well.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing is, you know, people say, "Oh, isn't it election time?" I got a lot of energy. I've always had a lot of energy. When I was little, they used to call me hyper diaper. You know, I mean, yeah. And I'm not embarrassed to say, you know, I got ADHD, and I don't take anything for it. And I've never had a cup of coffee, even though coffee would help me with it. I've been told that caffeine would help me.
Yeah.
But I'm comfortable in my skin.
Right,
And
right.
and not everybody likes that. You know, I'm loud. I'm Italian. I command because I'm a teacher, and this is my room and my domain. And so, like, I know I'm loud right now, and I'm sorry. People
Oh,
listening
yeah.
on the mic hear me. But
I think you're fine. I think you're fine.
I've never been soft spoken. When I was 3 years old in church, my dad would hold me up. Amen, amen, amen. I would scream the song. And my dad would just be like, yeah, that's my kid.
Yeah.
You know, people are like, oh, but it's just part of my personality.
Right.
I don't mean to offend anybody
Right.
ever.
Right.
But when I'm really passionate about something, man, I've come out of the woodwork. And I'm not looking for applause or accolades or anything like that. It's the fact that I want to bring people together. And I've been told by some people that they feed off my energy, my vibe. They're like, oh, I like that.
Right. Yeah.
They like that I'm a spitfire, that I'm a little, you know. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, you know, I'm not 25 anymore, but I got the energy like I
Right.
am.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got the energy like I'm 15 or maybe 10.
Well, for a lot of that stuff, it's necessary, though. You know, for what
Because
you're doing.
I'm going places. Because after school, the city is my child. It's my kid. I feel responsible for this city.
Right.
At all levels.
Right.
And I take that very seriously. And so I can't just sit here and say, you know, staff will take care of it. No. I got to be involved.
Yeah.
If I'm about it, if I'm really about it, I got to walk the talk.
Right.
Plain
That's
and
true.
simple. And I don't mean to be abrasive or offensive or anything like that. I'm just really hyped up on
Just real.
getting it done. Thank you. That's going to be my new tag phrase. I'm just real.
Well, I know somebody's got a
We got another
after
show
this.
coming up.
Yes, so we will be wrapping this up. But again, Christina, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for inviting me.
It was great to hear your perspective on the city and a bit of what direction you want it to go in. I love your energy. I love that you actually get out there and are involved with the community and the services that you stand behind. So if this is one of the candidates for District 5 for City Council, I encourage you to look up the other candidates as well. I've reached out to several candidates to bring them in for interviews, so don't think KXVS is playing favoritism at all. Christina was just gracious enough to respond and actually come in. So
Thank you so much. And I think that KXVS is definitely, you know, it's a community radio, you know, radio program. And I think, you know, all of us should come in here because it does provide an avenue to share information and empower the people.
Right.
I mean, so don't pass up the opportunity. I would encourage everybody, and I've been doing this for a number of years since we were over at Delta.
Right.
And I've seen other people come on board and use this as a venue, you know, to really reach the people. And I am so thankful for KXVS, and I love being a part of it in any way I can.
Well, we appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. So thank you so much for tuning in to our special edition of Rise and Shine 209 with the Voice of Stockton on KXVS Radio. This was your host, Cesare Day, with my guest, Christina Fugazi. As always, wishing you peace, love, and light, and enjoy the rest of your Saturday.
Yeah.
What up, what up, what up, what up? It's Josin Apex. Rest in peace, Jay Dilla. Hip hop forever, baby.
A-P-E-X.